I hope your weather is cooperating. It has rained again here in Pennsylvania, which is one of the northeastern states of the United States. Its capital is Philadelphia. And if you're just getting up, this is the second day that we are doing this show with my co-host, Vicky Esther, who is talking to you from Singapore. And she is somewhere in the late evening over there. So give her a big thumbs up for still being wide awake and alert and ready to help me carry this show forward. Today, we're going to be talking about the primary subject, the meaning of Christmas. And for many, that has somehow been convoluted with how many presents can I get under the tree? And not so much what is the significance of this day and what it really means to a lot of people. Christmas has different names for different countries. There are different traditions and cultures and societies that regard Christmas differently. And depending on their history of how they celebrated it in the past, they've either evolved into something that has still some sort of meaning, whether it is religious or whether it's mainstream. Every one of us has a different take on what this holiday means to us above all other holidays. And it's something that one really needs to either go into the bathroom or go into a shed or go into a private place where they can really sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with their soul, if you want to put it that way, or heart-to-heart talk with that inner voice that speaks to us occasionally. Or just a heart-to-heart talk, bring in your pocket mirror, look yourself up, and have that talk that says, why am I celebrating this holiday above all others? And why do I spend more time preparing for it, buying food for it, going out and spending money that perhaps it's going to take me 1 or 2 years to pay off? And all of this comes into what is the significance of Christmas. Now, everybody knows that Thanksgiving stands for family, getting your family in, getting your friends in, inviting people off the street. Christmas is known for aluminum pink Christmas trees, or paying $300 for a living tree that is joined the ranks of the undead. And so, or have the artificial tree where you can conveniently pack it up and put it in the garage until next year. So you have to ask yourself, seriously, folks, why do the schools give the kids 2 weeks off? Why do companies close down a half a day before Christmas and perhaps a half a day before bringing in the new year? I'm pretty sure that at Stonehenge and many of the other monolithic statues and stone cities that were put up, there was significance for why they did that, whether it was offering their food as a sacrifice, whether they took a life so the blood would seep into the ground to guarantee that rain would come and the crops would prosper. There are all kinds of different reasons. And so what you as a person must do, if you're brave enough, is to separate yourself from all the hype, all the commercialism, and yes, even your faith, and say to yourself, why do I celebrate Christmas? And what is its significance? What is its meaning? Its inner meaning to me. Well, if you were brought up Christian, you were told the story of Mary and Joseph and Jesus, complete with the three kings who traveled afar. And if you're Jewish, you celebrate Hanukkah and the massacre of the brave people who gave up their lives rather than submit to the Romans. Then you have Kwanzaa, which is celebrated in Africa and by the African Americans here in the United States. And then so it goes. You have Father Christmas, you have Papa Noel, you have Santa Claus, you have all the different type of men who come and visit, bringing gifts or bringing coal and sticks, depending where and what country you're in. So to start this off with, I will tell you the meaning or the significance of Christmas to me. When I was a child, my parents celebrated Christmas. But as we got older, they stopped celebrating and buying live trees and adorning it with ornaments for whatever the reasons. It never occurred to me to ask my parents why they did what they did. They were the children of the Depression. They lost more than half of their relatives in World War II to the gas camps. So I did not ask because it was still too raw for them to discuss. I never spoke to my grandmother. She did not celebrate Christmas. She celebrated Hanukkah. So depending on what faith they were following, they celebrated a holiday in their own way. I brought up my son with Christmas. I had him follow the 10 Commandments when he was growing up. He turned out rather good well. But the meaning of Christmas to me is not so much maybe the miracle of it, but the covenant, the second covenant that the teacher Jesus brought to this world. And I try to remember his covenant all through the year, as painful and as difficult as it is. To me, giving is a 365, 7-day-a-week affair. It's not something that I just zero in for Christmas and look over my shoulder and say, is God looking? See what a wonderful person I am. See what I'm doing. To me, that is not the real meaning of what Christmas is all about. It's from the heart and from what is inside of you, not on the outside. So I will ask my co-host, Vicki, what the significance of Christmas is to her loved ones, and her family.
Thank you, Lillian. It's such a wonderful time to be with you. And this is the second day of our live show that is streamed in the whole of the metaverse in Facebook and also to YouTube, and also now at streameater.com, and that's streamitter.com. Playback, and then you can get the link. Thank you, Lillian. Yesterday we talked about love, we talked about you and discovering the springtime of life again, and today we talked about the meaning of Christmas. And you have been such a great podcaster. I mean, you are such a great podcaster that you actually encapsulated that in the last 10 minutes about how your time and your parents' time, Christmas has changed within that history. And also I like to talk about Christmas probably is different geographically because we are here in Singapore, and also culturally, right? And also the difference in the way faith has been practiced. And to echo and also to extend from what you say, just to let you and also the audience know, I was not born a Christian. I was born into a Buddhist family. My grandparents, my parents, my whole extended family, they're all Buddhists. And I only got myself accepted the faith in more than 10 years ago. And it's something that I am only saying that I'm getting to understand more about the Bible. I'm getting to understand more about the faith as I start to read and I start to listen to the sermons the last 10 years or more. And we are talking about someone like myself in this part of the world, but a lot of us come from very diverse background, Lillian. We've got the Buddhists. My family, like my sister, she's still she's a Buddhist. My brother accepted the faith after I did, after some years. My late mom accepted the faith 2 years before she passed, and now she's home with the Lord. And I'm glad that the assurance to me in my heart is that she's in a better place. She's in heaven, and she's a place paved with gold with a lot of worship, and that gives me comfort. In a very difficult state of my life, but that kind of gives me comfort. Even within my family and even within the extended family, there are people with opposing faith. But the good thing in this country or in this part of the world, people do accept you with different faiths. I think there is a lot of acceptance if you come from a different background, even of a different economic, social background, different status, or different color or different religion. But that's how this part of the world is, because we are in this part of the world in Indo-Pacific, in a lot of Asian countries, whereby the population is really overflowing and people are always crisscrossing either across within their own country, across the states. It could be the north, the south. There are different cultural practices, different faith even within the country, from north to south, east to west. And for Singapore, like a little island, and you know your geography really well, a small island of 700 kilometers square, really tiny dot, we call it a red dot in the middle of the South China Sea. We've got four main religions, right? We've got the Buddhism, we've got the Taoism, we've got the Catholics, we've got the Christians. We make a distinction between Catholics and Christians here, and also we've got the Muslims, Hinduism. Well, in fact, it's almost like 6 or 7 major faiths amongst the people in a very small little island, and we're made to respect each other. We're made to understand each other. Like my neighbors, I think they are from India. Just beside me, if I open the door. In another apartment, they're from India, and I guess they practice different faiths. Even within India itself, there's hundreds of different faiths, and they deem themselves different from each other. Okay, and then I've got another neighbor from Malaysia, and they're Buddhists. Either they're Buddhists or Taoists, and within that faith, you've got different segments. So it's too diverse. The only thing we can respect. And because with a little understanding that we have for each other, the only thing we can do is respect and acceptance and let people lead their way of life. And I think the beauty of a country like in Singapore is that I think we learn to accept, because that's the only way we know. That's the only way we know, because we don't want to have brushes with each other, or friction with each other along the streets. We're talking about one of the densest populated countries in the world per square meter in Singapore. So it's so easy to have a spark. It's so easy to have a spark that sets off a huge fire that we have historically. We've got a history short history, but bloodshed where diverse groups came together and set fires on each other because of their differences. I think in some way we learned from the short history about acceptance, just leaving people as they are and then accepting their way of life. For example, food, right? I mean, there are people who are vegetarian, right? I mean, myself, I told you, I came from a Buddhist family. My grandmothers on both sides, father's side, mother's side, they're Buddhists, and a lot of my extended family are Buddhists, and they are vegetarians or vegans, and a lot of us are vegetarians and vegans, maybe on certain days of the month, not 100%, right? But it kind of, you respect each other, and even a lot of good Indians, Hindus are vegans, and within their faith, they also have different segments. So for us, I think the only way for us to live together is not to question, but rather to respect. Because I think even for our own faith, we have a journey to learn. So I don't think we are in any way have the right to question other people or not to accept other people, because we have ourselves to deal with first. I think with that saying, to answer you and to extend what you say, the geographical difference, because we're here in this part of China, geographically we are different, culturally we are different because we're so diverse. We've got different colors, different language, different kind of food. I love a lot of Indian curry, and within the Indian curry, there's North Indian food, South Indian food, or within themselves, there's different kinds of food. And even for Buddhists, Taoism, they have vegetarians and non-vegetarians. I respect all of them. And myself, having accepted the faith, to tell you, Christmas is a time of faith for me, and of course the church that I used to attend. Recently, because I've been in France for about 7 years, coming to next year will be eight years. Haven't really been with the church, but I would think that it's supposed to be faith-based until commercialism came about, because it's year-end. People wanted to take this time to celebrate the year-end accomplishments, just to like wrap up having a good time. And I think it's good to have a good vacation, holiday season, happy holidays is good. And also the other segment are people with the faith. So for me, Christmas is really about the faith. Even though the 25th of December is not exactly the birth of Christ, if you look at the calendar, it's not the birth, but it's just a significance of the birth of Christ on the 25th of December. But we are told to keep it modest. We're told to keep it meaningful, spending time with family, love and family, and not to have too much lavish kind of commercial celebration out of that. Definitely for me and for the people that I know, it's not a time to go to the bars. It's not a time to get yourself drunk, wasted. It's not a time for you to go out there to like party all night long and like just lose your mind, right? But it's a time for the family to be together, to reflect, I think. So I think Christmas to me, Christ is the reason. And if we go back to the basics of it, when commercialism hasn't like taken on this magnitude on for this end of the year, which happens to be around Christmas, and also because you've got Black Friday from America, people just kind of like gel everything together. But I would think that it's important to kind of like make a distinction between the faith-based kind of Christmas versus the commercial season celebration, because it's a year-end holiday. So I think that distinction sometimes blur. People take the time off to get wasted in the bars. And the last time I've been to a bar was like when I met my husband, that was like 15 years ago there. He asked me for a dance. And that was the first time I met him. And that was the last time I went to a bar. So thereafter, it's like Christmas is really about an everyday affair, but the significance of faith. It's not about, it's a good time to reflect about giving. Thanksgiving is a time for reflection because we're coming to the end of the year to reflect on what you have accomplished for the year, the journey and the learnings and the lessons and the growth, and also the regrets. I think it's so important, but people should not miss this chance at this season, whether you're a Christian or not, just to take the time to really reflect on missed opportunities. Missed opportunity, and I have to tell you, Lillian, I've got lots of missed opportunities in terms of reconciliations of friendship, reconciliation with certain people, or even betterment of certain relationship, I should say, undoing certain regrets, or redoing certain things better, or could I have done some things and could I have done and not have done some things. So I think it's a time for us to have this checklist at the end of the year to revisit 2020 and 2021 because they're so significant in the history of mankind. It's going to be that chapter the children will need to study as we pass on. They're going to document this in the textbook, right? 2020, 2021, and then 2022. That's the time of that viral warfare. I don't call it a chemical warfare, but I call it a viral warfare. And anthropologists, historians, they're going to excavate, they're going to ask the 4Ws, 1H, right? They've got to go why, what, when, whom, and how did we handle it? I think that's going to be a lot of questions. And I think we must not forget people were passed on regretfully during these times, even though, a lot of people, I think people are passing off prematurely during this very difficult time. And also people have their livelihoods cut, people who have their relationships devastated, people who have great impact on their lives. I think the meaning of Christmas to me is a time for us to reflect. It's a time for us to go down on our knees figuratively. You don't have to really go down on your knees. I mean, a lot of us can do a lot of things. You can sing on top of your lungs. But I really think that it's time for us to give thanks. Like we are still alive now. On the 19th of December 2020, we're still alive. And tomorrow we still got another day. We are given a chance as we wake up in the morning. Christmas means to me, thanks, thank you, and thank God. Thank everyone. Thank everything. Thank everything. I mean, that's all I say, Lillian. That's my meaning of Christmas. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. And you're taking a stand of what you believe and what you feel is important for you to follow. And that's a really good statement to make and stand behind, because a lot of people make a lot of statements when they're under the influence, whether it's alcohol, a drug they're taking, whatever. Sometimes people say things, but they don't always follow through.
Yeah, and Lillian, just to add, I think if you think about, we have arrived today, you and I, we were talking to each other in February, we were in the heights of great uncertainties. And again, with the Omicron, there are great uncertainties coming back again. And we don't know how we're going to crawl out of it. And hopefully we do crawl out of it. Hopefully the politicians and the policymakers have learned a lesson in 2020 the second episode of what's going to happen. I think I hope that they learn something on policies, right? Or to learn something, and all of us hopefully we learn something, and that's a hope. But just think about that, Lillian. Think about that life that you have. Think about you, and I'm so thankful that you have, and I'm so thankful from my heart that you talking about the new spring in your life. Yesterday, I reflected on what you spoke. That's why a show like us, a season is important, because we get to reflect on the episode before, right?
Right.
We get to reflect on what we said before. Hey, what's that meaning of the statements that you made? And to think about that, Lillian, you are going into a new life. 16th of August 2022, 16th of October 2022. And that's going to be a huge day for you. But even now, it's a huge day for you. That's a moment of significance for the rest of the world, because it's an announcement to be made. Is to let the world know, but your hearts are together. You're going to spend your lives together. That's already a covenant, the unseen covenant. And to think about that, that immensity, having a new life that you're going to have, Lillian. And we talked about 2020, we talked about 2021, we talked about, that kind of lockdown that we were in, and you are now having a new spring of your life. It gives a lot of hope to a lot of people. You just being you, and think about life as a whole, Lillian, that we come together right now to talk about Christmas and the significance and the meaning of Christmas. And we have the opportunity to reflect on the meaning of Christmas. To me, that's a gift, Lillian.
Well, I believe that it's so difficult for people actually to move on. We celebrate the new year every year. And yet I hear a lot of people tell me, I'm still trying to reevaluate what happened now. And I'm not really ready to start all over again and redo everything that I've done the previous year. But if you really think about it, take a look at your kids, for example. Every year they get older. Every year they go to a new class, a new grade. They have completed the term from the summer before, from the year before. They take them their tests, they pass them, and they're put into the year, the new year. And I know that people always fear the unknown because they do not know what's coming. Well, the same thing can be said of the kids, because each year they're in a new grade, and maybe they have some of their friends with them in this new grade, but they're still facing it more or less alone. And they have to learn to take it in stride and somehow have it integrate and blend with what they've learned the year before, because this is forming their body of experience each year that they get older, and they'll take that body of experience with them as they move forward. So why can't us as adults remember that each year we're collecting our own luggage of experience of what we have already done and what we will do in the new year. And it's not necessarily a repeat of what we did last year, because you have learned from what you did last year. And while you'll be carrying over the positives of what you learned, hopefully you will cast off the negatives that are hindering you from moving forward. And
Yeah,
you need to
yeah.
keep that in mind
Yeah,
when you're celebrating Christmas, because
yeah,
Christmas
yeah.
is that milestone.
Mm, yeah. And think
You
about, and
hear
yeah,
people say that
yeah.
all the time. Yeah.
And think about that analogy that you said. I mean, it's so apt, right? I mean, think about that kid moving on to fifth grade from the fourth grade, right? Bringing on all the knowledge of the fourth grade and then learning new things in the fifth grade. And that's something that we took it for granted when we were young, right? Because we kind of like progress year by year, by 12 months. We kind of like mark 12 months as the learning experience, and then we go on to the next 12 months. I mean, if let's say the calendar is now like chopped into 6 months or made it into 18 months, then we will take that as the kind of a yardstick to kind of bring it forward to the next phase of the yardstick, and to extend on what you say, Lillian, for 2022, I still have a vague idea of my fifth grade. Now, if I'm in my fourth grade now, what I'm going to do in my fifth grade, I've got no idea, and I've got no teacher, and I've got no textbooks, and I've got no curriculum. Kind of like plodding on into the fifth grade. I mean, I do hope that with it, I'm still like trying to figure out right now what I will do in the fifth grade on my own, because I call the shots of my life right now, right? I mean, I plan for my life with, of course, restrictions and with certain responsibilities. I will have to carry them over to the fifth grade from currently the fourth grade. I am trying to figure out what 2022 holds. I've got a couple of things already vaguely, tentatively in my calendar, but I have not come up with that kind of phase by phase kind of like progression yet. But I think it's like what you say, it's such a good analogy. Yes, we are going to the fifth grade, bringing what we learned in the fourth grade into a new year. And hopefully we go into the new year with new learnings in a better way, in a more positive way, with better outcomes. What about Lillian? How are you preparing your 2022
Well, actually, I
bonding
am.
ceremonies?
Actually, I am, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of these people who buy my Christmas gifts somewhere at the beginning of the summertime, and I put them away in the closet because I already have a pretty good idea of what I want to get from my grandkids and their parents. And then for 2022, I already have a bunch of letters and proposals out to various people waiting to hear whether they're interested in my programs for teaching podcasting to middle school and high school students, college and university students, and a continuing adult education. And yes, I do it remote, so I can teach it anywhere in the world. Listen up, folks. These are your kids and grandkids' world we're talking about. I'm not talking about the baby boomers or young 20s. They should have gotten some of this. I know that my grandkids know how to use my cell phone a lot better than I could ever do, even if I sat down with cell phone for dummies. That's just the way it is. They are born with the knowledge of how to use those gizmos, if you want to call it that way. And the kids who are coming up know even more than the crop that's already out there. So I understand this, but I want to prepare these kids for their future. And if they start young enough, by the time they hit middle school or high school, it will position them to be more competitive, but and more importantly, find a job they love. Wow. Because the assembly line is going to be turned over to the robots sooner or later, folks. I am sorry to say that, but it's one of those kind of jobs that really doesn't require too much thinking on anyone's part. But the other jobs that are available are the ones who are creating the robots and handling them. and that's all digital work. Let's not forget the craftsmen. They are very, very important. We need them, plumbers, carpenters, air conditioning, all these things, they're being computerized. So we still need people, what I call craftsmen, that help maintain our structure and keep us up and going. So all of this, I believe, is a necessity. And I want to make sure everyone, whether you come from the ghetto, an inner city, out in the country, in Appalachia, your mom's in prison, I don't care. You need this training, so let me know, huh? So I'm planning for that. I have some books that will be published in 2022, or at least I'll be getting some contracts in for them. And then, of course, is my human bonding, and I'm really looking forward to that. And listen up, folks. One of my friends says, you have to sign up, and I almost laughed out loud, through a bridal registry. So she can get me something on the bridal registry. This is the first time anybody's ever said that word to me, bridal registry.
So
and I know how to go about doing that. So if anybody's ever done that before, please let me know, because the
I have no idea.
I lived off the land, so I didn't need bridal registry. The second
I have no idea what that is. It seems like it's something,
A bridal registry is when you sign up with some large, well-known department store, and they help you with your dishes and everything that you need to set up a household. Well, he was married for 42 years. I was married for 30 years. That's 72 years worth of stuff that most of it's in storage. However, I fall away from the original intention here. But yeah, I already have plans for 2022, and I start making them around September.
Wow.
And you want to know why?
Wow, no,
Because
that shows leadership. But I'm just thinking you could actually send me the links or whatever CV you've got, whatever resume you've got, and then I can actually post it inside the YouTube and the Facebook.
Okay, thank you very
for the
much.
services that you're offering, and I'm quite interested in what you do. Probably we can use some of your expertise in this part of the world. I don't know, but you know, it's always a good try. Give me the links and give me your curriculum and some place whereby people can click and see what you actually are interested in sharing your life experience, your expertise with that. You know, Lillian, we have talked about family, a little bit about your family, and then about your preparation 2022. We also talked about your other half. Here we talked about relationship yesterday, and also about what Christmas today, the significance of Christmas. And I also want to touch on about the faith, you know, that I believe in, and that to continue and to extend. You know, even though in a country like in Singapore, we have a diversity, and the beauty of it is that people don't mind saying Merry Christmas, even across faith. Like my neighbors, or children, with children in the classroom, you've got a classroom of diverse students coming from different backgrounds. Nobody has a problem about saying, okay, Merry Christmas. And nobody will have a problem saying like, Happy Lunar New Year, for example, Happy Chinese New Year. Nobody will have a problem saying Happy Diwali, which is Indian Indian New Year, which is faith-based also. Nobody will have that of a problem here, because we are respectful of that, and that's, I feel that's the beauty of it. Even though it's kind of a Christian faith Christianity, but like what I said, it was also commercialized because look at the Christmas trees and all the companies are trying to push out that Christmas present and having this Christmas present gift exchange at parties, etc., calling it a Christmas party. I've got no problem with that. And I just wanted to clarify with you, Lillian, like, even though it was the other aspect is commercialized, and even I did say make a distinction. I've got no problem with having other faith trying to celebrate Christmas in a commercialized manner, if it brings them the joy, right?
Exactly,
If it brings them, yeah,
but
if it
people have
brings
to
them
realize
kind
that,
of togetherness.
yes, people have to realize there's more to Christmas
Yeah.
than lights, eggnog.
Lights,
A lot
yes,
of
with
people
a
don't
lot
have
of lights
any,
and
a lot of people
fireworks.
do without. They
Yeah.
don't have this. When I was bringing up my son, we didn't have money for that kind of stuff. We just didn't. And I know there are a lot of people, because of the pandemic, they don't have that kind of stuff either. I just want to let people know that there are ways of celebrating Christmas that has to come from them deep within them. That has nothing to do with the lights, action, camera. I mean, my
snowman
actually compare how many presents they get. That's not the significance of Christmas. That's all I'm trying to say. There's inner beauty. There's a bright white light. However you want to view it, as Christianity, Buddhism, Muslim, however you is, religion to me is a bright white light that enables people to believe that things will get better, that we won't always be in a state like this, that no matter how bad things are, there will always be a place for them to go to inwardly, where they'll be safe, they'll be protected, they will be loved. And that is what Christmas is overall. It's a place of holiness where you know that whatever faith or belief you hold dear to you, it will see you through.
Yeah, and I'm glad, and I totally agree with you. Like, I feel that why is this the biggest celebration for a lot of countries, right? Whether it's Christmas or not, whether that's Christianity or not, it's always celebrated. I think because it's like what you say. I totally agree with you. Like the end of the year, it's like we're coming the end of a tunnel. We hope that the new year is the light, right? Like what you say. We're coming through that tunnel. It could be a lot of joy, but I bet there's going to be a lot of like work throughout that year. You wanted to have like, okay, I just need to take a breath. I just want everything to sink in. And then I want to make sure that the year is going to be better because I worked hard, because I went through that, despite that moments, that kind of going through the 12 months of tunnel, like emerging at the end of the 12 months, we are all trying to arch our neck to see the light at the end of the tunnel. That new year is the kind of hope, is the kind of light, is the kind of place that I hope, I know that I could kind of strain forward and I'm going to be okay. I just want to get over this and I'm going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? It's like
absolutely. Absolutely. Because life is not a sure thing.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee.
Not a guarantee.
No guarantees. I mean, young kids who become adults, one of the first things you usually hear was out of their mouth is, I thought it'd be better when I turn 18. I thought it'd be different when I'm 21.
I thought I'm going to be a millionaire by the age
I
of
thought I'd be a
21.
millionaire before the time I was 28. Life is not fair. Really? Well,
Yeah.
life isn't fair when you're a kid, too. If you really take a good look around, there are a lot of kids who can tell you that, who come from some of the really poorest countries on this planet. But the fact of the matter is that there are parents, no matter how destitute or how desperate, they seem to put a little spark of resistance inside these kids. And despite all odds, they manage to grow and they manage to become adults, and they pass that little spark that has grown a little bit more to their next generation. And they're still around. I mean, Christ said it, the poor is always with you. Well, guess what? The poor are these people who are given little spark packages, if you want to put it this way. And they keep on going, believing and hoping that they can make it better the next year for their child. And maybe they won't, but they're not allowing themselves to be beaten down.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference.
Not allowing
And
themselves
you
to be
can call
down.
it faith, you can call it hope,
Belief, yeah.
you can call it endurance,
Yeah.
you can call it love. It comes under many names, but this little spark doesn't get vanquished easily.
Well said, Lillian. Can we make that into a speech?
Oh, please be my guest.
Yes, and I'm going to
You
make
can
that
take an
into your
excerpt from this
motivational
video.
speech, and it's going to be the highlight in the YouTube, I bet you. And Lillian, that's why I love to talk to you, Lillian. Because there's so much things about life, and that's someone who have gone through that, someone who have been through it all. You know, been through it, the ups and downs, the peaks, the valleys, the dark and the light, and you know, and everything that's in between, right?
Oh, absolutely. And if people don't think that life hasn't kicked me in the mouth or a couple other places,
the dust in the face.
Lillian Caldwell very well.
The dust in the face.
There are lots of things that have happened to me that I don't go out in the street and say, hear ye, listen to the life of.
Yeah. And I think it's so important, like you yourself, even you, I mean, the way I see it, Lillian, someone at your phase in life is such a beacon of hope. Just being you and just being yourself and just leading a life like what you're doing, a springtime for you, and going into a kind of a marriage, a covenant, right? I mean,
right.
Even that itself speaks a lot to the people you know, to the people who are listening in, the viewers, and to your children, your family. I mean, think about that. How many people can reach that journey, having like the valleys and then the peaks and the valleys, right? And then the mountains and the waves that come across, the currents of life, the slings and arrows of life, like what Shakespeare says. And that by itself, to me, it's immense. To me, it's significant because people like myself, we are looking forward to like what's next. Because like what you say, grade 4, right? You're going to the 5th grade. We don't have a curriculum in life. I mean, after you graduate, we are not given that kind of rational manual, right? We don't have a chapter 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 that we hope we imagine. And that's why we think that, okay, by the age of 21, I'm going to be a millionaire. And then after, by the age of 25, I'm going to have a 3-story bungalow villa with like 2 swimming pools and jacuzzi outside. And then I'm going to have like 10 mates. I mean, we hope to have that dummy kind of textbook, but the truth is that it does not really exist. It does not really exist in an operational menu because life takes you off tangent sometimes.
Oh yeah,
Sometimes
you
it kind of kicks you, like the dust kicks you in the face, and then you fall down, and then so people do. Um, I think people are still trying to find, after this whole history of mankind, a kind of way of life, and that's why you have the gurus, right? You have the gurus, you have the motivational speaker to tell you about searching about life and searching about yourself, because even at this day and stage, that with the immense world has changed with AI, but we are still trying to struggle with life, even with the technology that has grown immensely, even with Tesla that sent a car into outer space. We are still trying to struggle that. Think about that, Lillian, for a second. As like,
well, the thing of the matter is, excuse me, our civilization itself, it's splintered, and not everybody is operating from the same level. You have a lot of countries they call third world countries that are envious, excuse me, of what the Western nations have.
Yeah.
And as a result, a lot of the Western countries feel that it is their moral and religious duty, obligations, thank you, to bring up these third world countries to the level, a basic level of the 20th century. They're not even talking 21st yet.
Yeah.
A lot of these poor nations, due to weather conditions or the way their government is set up,
yes,
or economics, they're so depressed in terms of just trying to get everybody up into a certain level, that a lot of these folks are not worried about having a car being sent to Mars, or trying to afford the iPhone 13 when they don't even have the iPhone 0 yet.
Yeah. We should have your speech at the international summit. But we're not given that much time because everyone is only given 3 minutes. So the
only
feedback,
given 3 minutes.
The feedback
you
is
have to
that
give
we
me
should
a little bit
extend
more
that
time.
3-minute speech.
Okay, I'll try to hone it down. But the idea is, folks, is that one of the biggest things or challenges that looms for 2022 is two things, I believe, and embodies Christmas. One is judge not lest ye be judged. Meaning you can't be judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah.
And that you are also guilty of that same sin that you're beating up that poor person for. Whether you admit it or not, that's another thing. And the second thing is acceptance. It is not your job to change people. Your job is to change yourself, to deal with that which you find offensive in your fellow man. You cannot go and change somebody when you yourself is at fault.
Yeah.
You need to accept them. People look at me and say, how can you marry somebody who's already had a life? And I said, it's really easy. You just start a new book with a clean white page. And whatever came before. I know he's going to talk about his dead wife. I still talk about my dead husband. Come on, both of them are in our hearts, and we're going to talk about them. We spent a long time with them. You just aren't going to cast them out. But at the same time, you have to recognize you're starting a new life with a new love, and that you need to give that person the opportunity to shine, whoever there are. Your job is not to teach an old dog new tricks. Whether the old dog is man or an old dog is woman, or if an old dog is a kid, that's not your job. Your job is to love them, accept them as they are, and live a good life together. That's your job.
And you know, Lillian, when we spoke yesterday, you spoke about this little young man that was invited into the international summit, and his name is Subarno Isaac Bari. Wonderful, outspoken young man, the age of 9. He's actually 9 years old, coming on to 10 years old already. Outspoken, eloquent, and yes, like I think you're right. People are not listening close enough. Like, what does this generation think about the world that they're going to be inherited? And you have actually said, and he referred to you, that you spoke a lot about leaving the legacy of the earth in the state it is to the next generation, passing on that ball that is broken. Passing on
More
the
than
ball that
just
is
broken, pieces are scattered all over the planet.
Broken and scattered.
And I really feel for these kids, because what worked before is not going to work now. They really need to sit down and think about how to use what limitations they have, and not what was, but what will be.
And like what you said also, to kind of encapsulate, going forward to 2022, and also because Christmas is a season of love, a season of reflection. I would also think it's a season of growth in the ways that we allow ourselves to. I mean, I can tell you honestly, and to own up to you, there's a lot of resistance even within myself. Okay, this area I'm not going to touch it. This area I'm not going to grow. For example, like relationship with other people or certain groups of people, I say, no, I think I'm not going to touch that. I know I can be better, but I'm just going to leave it that way. There's certain things I know I could do better. There are certain things I just don't want to do better, because it kind of takes the world out of you, or that you don't know how to deal with it at the next stage. And I have to own up to you, in this season of reflection and the season of growth, there are certain things that I've grown, things that I think they're technical. It's easy, right? I've not learned this app before. I've not learned this button. I've not learned this thing. I think that kind of operational, manual, step-by-step thing, I think we can track our growth, right? I've not learned how to deal with that technology. Now I'm using a kind of new platform. Okay, I feel that I've grown, right? But I also feel that there are certain things I try to avoid growth, because that growth will pain me, make pain, give the pain to me, or it gives the memory of pain. I mean, it could be real or it could be imagined, right? Then the pain may not even exist, So I think it's even more important to face up to these demons within yourself.
Absolutely. Those are your temptations. People get comfortable with what they already have. They don't want to upset the apple cart, because they don't know what's going to happen from that next fallout from the apple tree. And I understand that. It's very, very difficult to ease yourself out of a rut, to ease yourself out of something that's familiar and comfortable, and not deal with certain things. And not deal with it. But what you have to remember is before all this happened, it was new when you first encountered it. But you, if you want, for lack of a better word, you conquered it. You made it your own, as people say. And I think that fear is your number one enemy, because you are afraid of what you believe you can't control, bend to your will, make better. So when you face the new year, think of it as a challenge, if you want, or think about it as a white knight or a black knight or an orange knight on your horse, and you're going out to slay a new dragon that mysteriously has shown up on your shores. And if you don't do anything about it, you're not going to get that 6-pack of beer next week, or the vineyards are going to be trashed by the dragon's breath. Or worms have gotten into the windfall on the lawn. And put it in terms that you understand, or your kids understand, or your tribe, meaning your community, understands. And then think about how you can make it better for everyone. Because if you allow fear to take over, you're going to be an insult to the Neanderthals who emerged from the caves of darkness. Think about it.
Thank you, Lillian. That was a lot of analogy and words of wisdom. But you're right. I mean, it's a lot of fear, because we don't want to challenge that status quo. Like, just leave it as it is, because you are just so afraid of wanting to confront something. You do know that you need to do that because you want to go to a second phase of growth to deal with certain issues in your life, but you're just wanting to push it away because of that barrier that is called the fear. And you're absolutely right. And I really enjoy this 1 hour and 10 minutes with you. It seems that we're going deeper. Our conversation, it's really something that people should start tuning in. Yesterday we've got about less than 20 people in the YouTube listening in, but we've got thumbs up in YouTube. But what I will do is that I will summarize what we spoke about yesterday and today, about life and how we're supposed to approach, not how we're supposed to approach, but how we think we could approach it, 2022, and some of the words that you shared, and that kind of pivotal reflection point, or I should say the inflection point, that a season like this presents to us. The light at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the year, as when we pushed ourselves through that 12 months, and hopefully we are coming to the end of a dark tunnel, and coming into light again, the kind of hope. I'm so thankful to have you today again, and both of us being hosts and co-hosts, main hosts and co-hosts interchange. But I'm so grateful to have you, Lillian, and to just be there, be here, and tell us that, hey, life is going to be okay. Springtime is going to come, and look at you.
Well, what people need to hold on to is that into everyone's life, a little rain must fall to nourish the seeds we have planted, so they can grow up to be strong.
Well said.
And I will tell you, when I was a single parent, ladies and gentlemen, for 15 years, and I was making less than minimum wage. So everything went to rent and food, and that was about it. And I brought home a 6-pack one day of beer, and in the middle of the afternoon, and I drank 1 can. And then I drank a 2nd can. And I looked at the rest of the 6-pack, and my thinking was, this is not going to help my son. And he did not ask to be born, whether you like that kind of reasoning or not. I brought him forth into this world, and I, and only I, was responsible for him. And if I was drunk or unconscious for drinking too much, what was I telling him? Non-verbally, what kind of message? What was he, 2, 3 years old? Ladies and gentlemen, at 2, 3 years old, your kid is thinking. He already knows stuff. He may not be able to verbalize it, but his antennas have been up since the day he was born. So what kind of image are you telling him? And that outweighed the pain and the frustration. I made myself some coffee, and that was that.
That was like straining ahead despite the moments. So Lillian, you know what? We're going to make this into the hook for tomorrow. And ladies and gentlemen, listening to Lillian's live story that she's going to tell us. You know, even you aren't with us live today. You are listening into as a playback in YouTube or Facebook. Join us again for the next few days to Christmas. Thank you, Lillian. Would you like to wrap up in the next 15 seconds?
Certainly. Thank you all very much for listening. As you know, you can hear this on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm not sure what your link is. Just get in touch with Vicki and she'll tell you via Facebook. And remember that Christmas is only 4 or 5 days away. Don't go rushing out and buy something so you have something to give to your kid or your mother or grandmother. Just walk up to them, give them a hug, and this is the kicker. I appreciate you.
Yes.
I appreciate everything you do for me all year round. I love it when you come and make me feel better after I've been kicked down, or the boss says something really nasty, or my boyfriend, girlfriend gave me a hard time. Remember, there's more to life than one sees or gives. So make sure when you give with your whole heart and sincerity. It goes a long way. Or what I did to my son when he was 10 years old, I said, you know what? I said, Santa Claus ran out of money. So he couldn't have the materials to make all the stuff that I usually get for you. And he doesn't accept credit cards.
I love that.
You're going to have to wait until February, March before Santa Claus restocks his shop.
You know, I would love to say that Santa Claus doesn't even exist.
I know. My 10-year-old looked at me. He says, in other words, Mom, we're broke again. I said, yeah. And it's going to be a while before you can get me something. Yeah. No sweat, Mom. I'm okay. And talk about a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. We had one for several years in a row. And what made Christmas wonderful was having my child and him knowing I loved him unconditionally. I didn't expect anything from him except he'd do his homework, take a bath, wash his very long hair, and change his underwear, you know, because he's starting teenagehood. But it really doesn't matter. And you can say, oh, well, yeah, it's easy for you to say. No, it's not easy for me to say. It was like when I had to talk to him about sex because he had no father to discuss that with him.
Yeah. You know, I just totally, you know, Lillian, I just totally agree with you. Like, and I would even propose that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that down in YouTube and Facebook if anyone will respond that, you know, I am totally with you. Let's keep Santa Claus broke. Let's keep him broke. That people just give that gift of appreciation. the gift of that love and the gift of the hug if they're physically together, but if you're social distancing, give them a speech, record a speech over the phone, over WhatsApp, send them a speech, and tell people how much that they mean to you. I mean, that is incredible. Lillian, that's incredible. If you could think about that, writing a card, from your heart, that is great. It doesn't have to be. How can you measure love with a gift?
You can't. I tell my station manager at least 4 or 5 times a week how much I appreciate her.
To do something, for example, you want to mow the lawn of your neighbor, to help them to do something. I totally am for that 1000% to show that you care because someone is in need. And I would think that there are so many ways of expression beyond a materialistic kind of giving, and especially when people are struggling right now. You don't have a lot of mothers with a lot of spare cash to buy that particular Game Boy or the game that they're trying to play. So like I'm a total proponent of what you say. Give anyone a hug, if you could. If you're social distancing, send them a voice message. For me, I send a voice message. I don't have to wait for them to pick up the phone. It's a surprise when they look at the phone and then they hear the message. I would think that in itself is such a gift, Lillian. And thanks to you, that's a great reminder to all of us, Lillian.
Well, after all that, thank you all very much for joining us. Please stay tuned for the next episode of this podcast with Vicki Esther and I, Lillian S. Caldwell. And remember this, that love can be expressed in many, many different ways. Oh, one other tip: instead of running out and buying paper to wrap the presents that will just be ripped apart Christmas morning, never to be seen again, if you have newspaper, if you have paper bags,
a magazine, for example,
a magazine
pages.
You have I have a lot of Xerox paper where it's only on one side, and instead of throwing it out, I'm going to be using it as wrapping paper.
Recycling,
it's just common sense, folks.
You save the earth.
Save the earth. They use Christmas trees now on the islands to keep the sand from eroding back into the sea. So think about how you can, even if it's a little campaign, how you can. My kid, just for a laughable thing, I couldn't afford to get him a ball one year, but we had thousands of rubber bands. So I showed him how to make a rubber band ball. Every secretary does it. He made a rubber band ball, and it worked a hell of a lot better than any ball he ever picked up in the store. It had a great bounce, and he can make it as large or small as he wanted.
Yeah,
just a thought.
Yeah, so we're going to have another great episode. I'm so how should I say, I'm so spiritually in line with what both of us are talking about. The spirit of Christmas and the meaning of Christmas, and that it should really just go beyond gifts. It's really about appreciation. Appreciating whatever you've got left, or whatever you have with you. So you know what, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for that wrapping up of that 15 seconds. And from me in Singapore, and Lillian from Pennsylvania, state of Pennsylvania.
Yes, state of Pennsylvania, country, USA.
Thank you so much. And at the same time tomorrow, and it is the prime time in Singapore, 9 p.m. Singapore prime time, at the news prime time, 9 p.m. in Singapore. You can tune in to Lillian and myself, the spirit of Christmas. Thank you so much, Lillian.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Have a great evening.
Bye, Lillian. I'll see you
Bye.
tomorrow.
I'll email some of that stuff to you.
Yeah, bye. I'll see you
Do
tomorrow.
you have an email?
I'll send the link and or the email to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I appreciate it. Bye-bye.